Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on feedback. Feedback as a speaker, as a presenter. Feedback is one of the most valuable tools that you can use in terms of your continuous improvement, in terms of growing your confidence, and in terms of being more effective, more targeted, more persuasive in your presentation skills. And I use presentation skills in the broad sense, whether you're running a workshop, whether you're running a seminar, whether you are delivering a keynote presentation at a conference, or whether you're a facilitator and it's brainstorming, networking type event that you are the facilitator. A little bit about me, a couple of new names on the webinar. So Peter Dew is my name. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach. My background is that I'm a person who stutters and have spent a large portion of my life avoiding public speaking, but now having found my voice, am passionate about helping other people around Australia speak confidently and effectively, sharing your important messages, your knowledge, the information that your valuable customers and clients need to hear so that they can move to a better place in their life. That's a little bit about my background. Most of you know me, so I won't dwell on that any further. How to participate in webinars. If this is your first webinar, do ask questions as we go. There's a little dialogue box, a question box that you can type in at any stage. You can also raise your hand and that'll grab my attention, and I can open up your microphone if you're wearing a headset or you have a microphone available. You can ask the question direct and live across the webinar and I will respond. Feel free to type in comments as well, so not just questions, comments. Take notes. With all my webinars, I will make the recording available if you are interested and you want to review it. So do take notes. Also, more importantly, participate and think and apply the knowledge or the information to your own personal situation. So in the question of feedback, how could have you got feedback previously when you've presented, trained, or delivered a workshop? Or if you have a seminar coming up or you are a speaker at an event in the future, how may you use what I'm going to teach you to gather feedback and grow and improve your public speaking skills? So it's the applying the knowledge that's going to make this webinar most valuable to you. So my hope would be that each of you walk away with one or two pieces of information that you can use tomorrow, immediately. What can you do the next time you're before a group of people to grow and improve your own presentation skills through the value of feedback? Brilliant. Why feedback? Ken Blanchard, the author of The 1 Minute Manager and other business books, describes feedback as the food of champions. I've also heard the saying, put in another way, that champions eat feedback for breakfast, and that's often used in the sporting arena. So feedback is important. Feedback is how you grow. Feedback is how you find out any little errors or mistakes that you're making. Feedback is how you find what you could do differently to just fine-tune your performance as a speaker and presenter. And in most cases, it is the fine-tuning. It's not that people are doing monumental mistakes. It's just they're doing tiny little things that people may find annoying, that if they were eliminated would make you more effective, more confident in the audience's point of view, from the audience's point of view. So that's a quote that tells you a little bit about the value of feedback. Let me just dwell a bit more on the value of feedback. There's a a psychological tool called the Johari Window. Some of you may have heard of this. And the two authors, the co-authors, were John and Harry, so they called it the Johari. I don't know their surnames, but just Google the Johari Window and you'll be able to find these psychologists, these researchers that have put this concept together. And what they say is that of our skills, our knowledge, our traits, our behaviours, our values can really be divided into 4 quadrants. And the first quadrant is stuff that you know about yourself and other people know. So if you're in a workshop with me, you would know that I'm 6 foot tall, you would know that I've got a bald head, you would know those things about me. You would also know that I'm a public speaking trainer and coach, and you'd also know my passion because I've shared that with you, helping people overcome their fear of public speaking so they can be effective and confident in their presentations. There's stuff about me that you don't know that I know. So this is my past, this is some of my values that I may not have shared. There's also this quadrant that you know this about me, but I don't know about it myself, and it may be that I'm arrogant, it may be that I do a funny little thing on stage that I'm unaware of, but you know because you see it. And then there's this stuff here that you don't know it about myself and I don't know it about myself. So let me just expand this a little bit further. In describing these quadrants, this is your open public self. You know it about me, I know it about myself. This is my hidden self, this is my private self. And this quadrant, this is my blind spot. And this bit down here, you don't know this about me and I don't know this about me yet. This is my hidden potential, my untapped potential. And this is an area, I do have these traits, I do have these abilities, I just don't know it within myself. If you can tap into some of this unknown potential, what you're doing is you're unlocking someone's potential. You're growing people's potential. So that's the value of this particular psychological tool. So how do you unlock some of this potential? And that brings me to the next 2 slides. The first thing is that you can give me feedback. So as you give me feedback, my blind spot, that stuff I don't know about myself becomes lesser, and so I move down into my unknown potential and I unlock some of my potential. So some examples of feedback that have made a big difference in my life. When I joined Toastmasters to overcome my fear of public speaking, I became quite good as a presenter. I won a lot of public speaking contests and a lot of people were asking me to help them in their public speaking. And I was just going through doing this because this is what I do. People said to me, Peter, you are a very good coach, you're a very good speaker. I would pay money for you to train me to speak. You should do public speaking for your business. Now, I never once ever saw myself as a public speaking trainer or a public speaking coach. I never once saw myself as earning any money doing public speaking skills. I was blind to that opportunity. Someone revealed it to me, and all of a sudden some of my untapped, my unknown potential was unlocked. So that is the power of feedback. Unrelated to this webinar, but just another thing that you may be interested in terms of unlocking your potential, it's called disclosure. So it's when you reveal some of yourself to your audience, that may also unlock some of your potential. Now, I don't mean deep, dark, hidden secrets, and you need to be careful of what you disclose, but many people have a struggle or a journey or adversity in their life that they have overcome, and they now find themselves working in that career. Sometimes disclosing that you've had a similar experience to a client helps you build rapport, helps you connect with the audience, and it gives you credibility. So in my introduction, I briefly mentioned, and I speak more about it in a one-day workshop, that I'm a person who stutters. I spent a lot of my time not speaking, a lot of my life not speaking, a lot of my life avoiding things. When I tell people this, when I disclose, all of a sudden people feel, wow, if Peter can overcome his fear of public speaking, if Peter can move from a position of not being able to speak to now doing presentation skills for his living, surely I can become more effective and more powerful within my own career, within my own life. So that gives me credibility. That's the power of revealing your hidden self. And that's not part of this webinar. So I want to focus on the feedback. So when you ask, when you invite feedback from people, you become more equipped, you become more competent, you become more aware, and you can now use those skill sets that you were unaware of, or you can deal with an adverse skill set. Just another quick example of feedback. When I first started doing my workshops 5 or 6 years ago, one of my non-verbal gestures is what's called the thinking position, or the contemplation position. And you put one hand across your chest, and then you put the other hand under your chin. Yeah. Okay, you're now clearly thinking, and it's a valid gesture. And often when you're considering or you're contemplating, you will go into that contemplation gesture. My gesture used to be with the thumb under my chin and the fingers across my mouth. And that was my normal thinking gesture. Someone mentioned that when I put my hand over my mouth, one, they can't hear me as well, and number two, their sister who lip reads would not be able to understand what I'm saying. So now when I do that thinking position, the fingers are curled and they go under my chin completely, and my lips and my mouth I do not cover in any way. It increases the quality of my voice, and also people that are hard of hearing, which includes myself, by the way, I don't hear all that well. I like to look at people's lips, especially in a noisy environment, such as a workshop. People can now clearly see my lips. Wow, the value of feedback. So there's two big changes in my life and in my workshop that I would not have done or achieved without someone giving me feedback. That's feedback. That's why. Champions seek out feedback, and feedback helps you to unlock your potential, helps you to grow, it helps you to eliminate some things that may be holding you back, may be interfering with your ability to engage and interact with the audience. What kind of feedback do you need? Sometimes you'll get feedback that's not that valuable to you, and do understand you have the ability to discern what feedback you're going to use and what feedback you're going to ignore. Some people ignore feedback at their own peril, but that's fine. Sometimes you get unsolicited feedback. Someone will just come up to you after you've spoken and say, oh look, by the way, I don't like the way you do this, this and this. Be wary of unsolicited feedback. So the feedback I like to work on is make sure it's actionable. There's something you can do about it. If it's pie in the sky feedback, or if it's feedback that really there is no action or no step, then okay, you can ignore that feedback. You've probably heard of SMART goals: specific, measurable, actionable, realistic and time-bound. So if there's no action you can take, then you can sort of dismiss that feedback. Needs to be specific. What do I mean by specific? If I said to all of you on this webinar, if I was attending one of your workshops, I really liked that, that was really good, fantastic, great job, I'm giving you feedback. What do you do with that feedback to improve, to take it to the next level, to continue delivering great content? Yeah, that was great, loved it. There's nothing in it for you to work on. Alternatively, if I say to you, yeah, that wasn't very good, I think you can do better. With that feedback, once again, what do you do to improve, to enhance your presentation with, sorry, that wasn't very good? So when I say that's not very good, what I noticed was you said quite a few ums and ahs, and I noticed you're doing a distracting body movement. You're swinging from side to side quite rhythmically, and I'm finding that distracting. See how it is specific. The other one is it needs to be honest. The way it's honest is you give people permission to give you feedback. I mentioned unsolicited feedback. Be wary of that. Sometimes unsolicited feedback will be valuable, but it's best where you give someone, or you find a feedback mechanism where you allow a person to give you honest permission. And the other thing is the immediacy. No point me saying to you, I noticed in that presentation you delivered 6 months ago that you said 25 ums and ah, and you keep clicking your pen. Not sure if you can hear that. You know, the speaker that brings the pen out the front, and all they do is click the pen. So you need the feedback immediate. And with it immediate, I like to say within 24 to 48 hours. Otherwise, you do not remember exactly what it was. Please don't go up to someone midway through a presentation, say morning tea, and say, look, I notice you've got a really distracting dance. You do 1 foot to the left, then 1 foot over, then you step back, and you're doing a bit of a square dance, because they've got to come back after morning tea and continue their presentation, and they may be distracted by that feedback. So let the person finish and then give them feedback. By all means, ask questions at morning tea, questions that relate to content. So that's a little model. Make sure your feedback is actionable, it is specific, it's honest, and it's immediate. I'm going to pause for a moment. Any comments, any questions at this particular point in time? Yep, and there's a question about, so how do you get the feedback and how do you make sure that it's honest? I'm going to talk about that in the next steps on ways to get feedback. And in that way that you get feedback, you can make it actionable, specific, honest, and immediate. Thanks for that question. Okay, moving on. 2 types of feedback. Direct feedback. So this is where you're receiving feedback on your presentation skills, your presentation style, your nonverbal communications, all of those things. So 6 ways that we're going to run through immediately. And I'll do these one by one. So if you haven't taken them all down, that's fine. I will go through them one by one. Have a trusted colleague or a friend in the audience give you feedback, especially when you're co-presenting or you're presenting to your own internal department. Have a complete stranger in the audience give you feedback. Video record. Use a follow-up questionnaire or a feedback sheet. Get feedback from the audience. Use a coach or a mentor, and use a mirror to give you feedback. Let me go through those one by one. The first one is have a trusted colleague or friend in the audience. So if you are presenting and there's someone you know, a colleague or a friend in the audience, brief them beforehand and say, do you mind giving me feedback on my introduction? And please don't get someone to critique your whole 1 hour keynote. Once again, you need to be specific, and you need to work on something you want to work on. I'm going to start with a new opening, and I'm going to use humor for the first time in my opening. Can you give me feedback on how well you think the audience received my opening and whether the humor worked or not? I've been told I do a bit of a jiggle on the stage. Can you give me feedback on how well I stand still in the first 2 or 3 minutes before I move to the flip chart and then the whiteboard, and then I start to use the platform purposefully? Just let me know how well I go in terms of whether I'm jiggling or not. And I'd appreciate if you could email me afterwards, or if you're going to stay behind until the end of the seminar, I'd love that feedback straight away. So I've asked for it to be actionable. I'd like to stand still and not jiggle, so that's something I can do something about. It needs to be specific. So can you tell me how I went? No, I haven't asked the person to tell me how I went. I'm asking them to tell me how well did the humor go, which could be, I guess, subjective. I prefer how well did I stand still. It's specific. I'm giving them permission to be honest with me, and I'm asking them to give me feedback immediately after I've finished. If you're still here at 4:30, could you give me feedback, or otherwise please send me an email. So you're now speaking to a group of complete strangers. You're an invited speaker into an organization. So have someone else in the audience that you've just met give you feedback. Those of you who've been to my workshops, you'll know that I'm the first person to arrive at a seminar. I'll be there an hour and a half beforehand. I have to set up. I want to know the room. I want to make sure everything's working. I want to make sure my PowerPoint's working, my audio. I want to know where the toilets are. Then people will start to arrive. Normally 1 or 2 people come nice and early. Have a quick chat to them. I shake their hand. I introduce myself. If I feel that I've connected with them, I will ask them, do you mind if you count my ums and ahs? My aim is to eliminate ums and ahs, and I do have a habit of saying a few filler words, and I've been working really hard, to eliminate them. Just let me know whether it's 10, 15, 20 ums and ahs in the first 5 minutes. Would you mind doing that for me? Brilliant, thank you. Morning tea comes and I go up. So how many ums and ahs? Peter, there was only 2 in that first 5 minutes. In fact, there was only 5 in the whole morning session. So I've got honest, specific, actionable feedback, and it's immediate. So you have to make sure you trust the person and you've connected with them. They are a stranger, so I wouldn't go high-level feedback. I would go something simple like your jiggle, your ums and ahs, your eye contact. I had one young person in a workshop on Monday who kept looking above people's heads. He just did not have the confidence to speak one-on-one with the people in the room, and there's only 10 people sitting in the room. And by the end of the day, he moved to being able to make eye contact and speak with us one-on-one for 1 or 2 seconds, then move to someone else in the room. So he is now really connecting and engaging us with real, genuine eye contact, and we could all give him feedback on that. Of course, that was a workshop environment, and we were working on his eye contact, so we were deconstructing that as the workshop went on. But those small, actionable things that you want to improve on, you can ask someone that you trust to give you feedback. You can video record part of your speech. One of the things with video recording is you do not look at the entire speech. 5 to 10 minutes is sufficient to give yourself self-feedback. The beauty of the video is the video camera does not lie. And you can do it in multiple means. You can video record a live presentation. You can pass a colleague, a trusted friend, your iPhone, your Android phone, and get them to video 5 minutes. You can practice in front of your webcam. Then you can review that 5 minutes. So the first thing is, 5 to 10 minutes is enough. The second thing is, when you are reviewing video, you must disassociate yourself as the evaluator with the presenter in that video. Otherwise, you'll become very critical of yourself. And in my case, you will look at yourself and you'll say, wow, has my beard really got that grey in the last 2 years? I don't remember turning grey overnight like that. And my belly, my New Year's resolution of losing 10 kilos is not going as well as I'd hoped. It had not gone as well as I'd hoped it would. And I've still got a belly that sticks out through my shirt. Damn. So you get tied up with being critical of yourself. So disassociate yourself as the critique. Look at the presenter. Count the ums and ahs. What are they doing with their gestures? Is their body language congruent with what they're saying? Are they nice and steady on their feet? You can email that video file to a coach, to a colleague, and ask them to comment on specific questions. Or if it's a public speaking coach like me, you can just email me the recording and I'll focus on 2 or 3 things that I know you're doing really well. Remember, with feedback, it doesn't always have to be negative, or it doesn't always have to be improvement. Toastmasters tend to give what you're doing really well and 1 or 2 areas of improvement, and then what you're doing really well. So when I review someone's video, I will give positive commendations, positive information, and always look for 1 or 2 areas of change or improvement. Or if in your video file you've also told me, Peter, can you help me with my ums and ahs? Can you help me with my body language? I will focus on what you want me to do. Video record yourself. Great way of getting feedback. The video camera does not lie. So many devices, even my camera, my digital camera, and my digital camera is in fact a Sony CyberShot, and I can record with a 16 gigabyte SD card. I can record up to an hour of live video. But once again, 5 minutes is all I need to look at, to work on a specific improvement. Questions? Ask a friend or a colleague. Ask a complete stranger. Ask someone to video record the live performance. Video record your practice session. Any questions, any comments? Does anyone cringe at the thought of looking at themselves and hearing themselves on video? Yep, I understand. Just a comment that someone doesn't like the sound of their voice, and I don't like the sound of my voice as well. The bad news is how you sound on a tape recorder or a digital video recording, or how you sound if you ever do radio, is how you really sound in real life. How you sound to yourself is distorted because the sound's got to travel from your voice through your jawbone up to your ears, and it does get distorted just a little bit. So if, like myself, when I hear myself on video, my voice is a little bit monotone, what I try and work on is putting more vocal variety, changing the volume sometimes softening, sometimes speaking louder to put a bit of music into my voice. I don't have a natural radio quality voice. But once again, my advice to that comment is you need to get over yourself. It's the information that you're presenting to the audience, families with a child with an intellectual disability, health professionals, occupational health and safety people that are going to go and work out in the mining sector to make the workplace a safer place. It's your information that matters. So get over yourself and look at the quality of the information, the quality of the presenter, and what can you do to do a better job. Moving on, use a follow-up questionnaire or feedback. Feedback is the food of champions. After every workshop, I send a little questionnaire to people to let me know how they found the workshop. Several ways you can do questionnaires. You've probably heard of Surveymonkey. Surveymonkey is a free online software that you go to and you can create a little survey. Then you email that survey to your participants, to your clients, and get them to answer the questions. So ask them particular questions. Was the topic of value? Have you got something that you can do and use in your workplace to overcome the problem that I spoke about? My questionnaire is an open questionnaire that I email. What did you like about the workshop? What did the presenter do well? The second question is, what could I change? What could I do differently? What could I do to improve the workshop? And the third question is, any other comments? Was the venue appropriate? Was the timing okay? So these are open questionnaire. These are open questions that I like to use, and I get really good feedback. Every now and then I get feedback that I value, such as putting my hand over my mouth when I'm in the thinking pose. Then every now and then I get information that is of not much value. One person gave me feedback, what could I change? So I set up the training room. Just visualize this. I set up the training room. I put nice jugs of iced water everywhere and cups and pens and paper, and I did all this myself. It was a small workshop, and the feedback that I got was, Peter, I am allergic to fluoride and chloride. I could not drink the water that you put out. You need to provide filtered chloride, fluoride-free water at your workshops. That was the feedback that I got. For the next 18 months, every workshop I went to, I carried around in my backpack 1 litre of mineral water with no chloride and no fluoride. And I never needed to use that again. So I guess the feedback was something, okay, yep, I hear you, but I'm not going to change the way I do things. If you have an allergy to fluoride or chloride, maybe you should carry some bottled water yourself. Became my realization. Now, I do know that when you do catering, gluten-free, lactose intolerance, celiac disease, so, wheat-free, that is gluten-free, lactose intolerance, vegetarian, veganism, I know those things. You would need to cater for those. But an allergy to fluoride, maybe someone can take care of that for themselves. So just be aware of those feedbacks. Then there's these questionnaires that people hand you out at the end of the workshop, and you have this rating sheet or this questionnaire on your seat or on the desk when you arrive, and it's forced choice. I don't particularly like these forms of feedback. I love the open. So I would encourage you to go more with the open-end questionnaire as opposed to the forced choice or rating sheet questionnaire. The problem with the problem with the forced choice or the rating sheet is it's called the error of central tendency. And that question might be about how valuable was the content, was the presenter engaging, but it's really hard to get down to the nitty-gritty that you want. The problem is most people give it a 3 or sometimes a 2 or a 4. So, you're doing reasonably well in most things. And in terms of continuous improvement and specific actionable change, it's really hard to grow and to improve. And in terms of honesty, am I honestly going to tell you that you really suck, or that you've done poorly in one area and give you a 1? Probably not. I'll probably give you a 2 if 2 is just below average. So just be aware that forced choice is not always the best way to give feedback. Use Surveymonkey. I love the open questionnaire. Get that feedback, that survey back immediately. I guess one of the risks that I take is that not everyone returns their email questionnaire. When you put the forced choice sheet on someone's desk or table before the end of the workshop, you get a 90% return rate. You get a 90% return rate. So I could do my email questionnaire that I send out after the workshop. I could probably print that, and instead of a forced choice, have an open-ended questionnaire, but then it takes people time to write comments and to think about it, and it's 4:30 and I finished and it's time to go. People don't want to hang back and fill in questionnaires, so they either finish it early before you finish the workshop. So yeah, it's up to you, but feedback is one of the ways. Questionnaire, post-workshop questionnaire is one way of getting really valuable feedback. Use a coach or a mentor. Coaching and mentoring is one of the ways of fast-tracking your skills. I guess the difference is a mentor is someone who's already got those skills. So a mentor would be a very effective public speaker, a very effective presenter. And in Toastmasters, they'll often assign new members a mentor, and that's to bring your speaking skills up to speed quicker. A coach doesn't have to be so much a good speaker. A coach can be someone who holds you accountable. So a coach will work with you on setting your goals and will check in and make sure you are doing what you said you're doing. In public speaking, generally a coach would also be good at public speaking, so they're a skills coach. As in football, you'll have a kicking coach and a tackling coach and a ruck coach. Those people need to have those skills again. But in the corporate world, in business, a coach is more about keeping you on target, keeping you accountable, and checking in on you. So use a coach or a mentor to fast track your public speaking skills, especially when you've got a specific assignment, a wedding speech coming up, a presentation at a conference where you're a keynote speaker. Certainly use a coach or a mentor, and a mentor may be your boss or a supervisor that is also very talented at that topic you're speaking on, and you may use one mentor or coach for your content, but they may be, especially in the academic world, a lot of lecturers, a lot of researchers are very brilliant, clever academics and terrible presenters. They stand behind the lectern and they read from their script word for word and they bombard you with PowerPoints. Brilliant at giving you feedback on the value of your content, the relevance of your content, but less so on your effective speaking and engagement of the audience. So that's where you get a public speaking coach or mentor. Just a little tool that I use. There's an app you can download on your iPhone or your app you can download on your iPhone or your Android device or your Windows phone. It's called Coach's Eye. It's not free. It costs about $9, so it's one off. What it does is it enables you to split the screen of an iPad or a PC or a laptop, and I guess a phone as well, and show a before video and an after video. So I could video record you at the beginning of a coaching session or at coaching session number 1, and then we could do 5 sessions. Then I'd video record you at coaching session number 5, and I can run those videos side by side, and you can see the before and the after. So obviously they use it in sport for golf swings. The image I'm showing you now is a baseball swing, but it's a great tool that you could use yourself with your videos to have a look at, have the ums, or are you standing still, or have you eliminated the clicking of the pen, the before and the after. Coach's Eye. If you want to fast track your presentation skills, become more effective, use a coach, use a mentor. A coach will give you really good feedback. It'll be specific, it'll be honest. He'll give you something you can work on. And he'll work with you in terms of making it time-bound, immediate. And if you meet with your coach once a week, then you'll want to do something by the next week. You'll want to agree to have joined a Toastmasters club. You want to have agreed to join the Rostrum club. You will want to have agreed to stand up and speak at a meeting or present at your committee meeting that you normally don't present at. And your coach will make sure you do that. Coaching, mentoring. Use a mirror. This is good for non-verbal communication. This is good for facial expressions. This is good for immediate change. So you don't have to do the video, download it, look at it, compare a past video with a current video. So excuse the stealing of a saying, mirror, mirror on the wall. Really good for facial expressions. Let's say you want to do new gestures. And in my workshops, I talk about growing your gestural vocabulary, richness of gestures, as opposed to the same gestures over and over again. In fact, if you watch some of our politicians, if you watch Tony Abbott as he speaks, the two hands are in front of him and they bounce up and down in rhythm every time he speaks. And after about 30 seconds, the bouncing of those hands is annoying as anything. So can you present without that distracting bounce? Can you bring in new gestures? Your stance, so you want to eliminate that little dance. Can you stand nice and still? Find that position of excellence where you can stand with your feet slightly apart, knees bent. When I say slightly apart, not too wide. Gentlemen on the webinar, sometimes we stand too wide and that's seen as aggressive. You can practice that stance in front of the mirror. Once again, I would not stand in front of a mirror and practice for 30 minutes or practice your whole 45-minute keynote. Just work on one skill, a new gesture. Practice it for 5 minutes and then leave it. Come back the next day, practice it for 5 minutes. Use the mirror. Instant feedback. You can change immediately. You can do something different immediately in front of the mirror and you will get that feedback. And it's honest feedback as well. Any questions on those 6 ways of feedback that I've just shared with you? 6 ways of direct feedback. From memory, ask a trusted colleague or friend in the audience. Secondly, ask a complete stranger. Thirdly, video record yourself. Fourthly, use a questionnaire, a post-workshop questionnaire. 5th, mentor or coach. And last, number 6, use a mirror, especially in the non-verbal. Any questions, any comments? I'm just going to pause for a moment. Is anyone currently receiving feedback routinely every time they speak or present? Or is it something you have avoided? Yep, not keen on getting someone else's opinion and choosing the right person at work, because some people at work think that they have a right to then go into a complete dialogue on what you're doing wrong and how you could do this, and all of a sudden your self-esteem takes a further hit. Important to choose the right person. Yep, and someone always does this. So Christine, you're always seeking feedback. The form, always give the form, but the form usually is given out at the end of the session. Is it forced choice or do you have open questions within the feedback form? A bit of both. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I've seen some good forms where you tick the box 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and then any other comments. I often don't fill in any other comments unless there's something really I want to say. But if someone asks me a specific question, then I'm more likely to fill it in. And so someone's going to try Surveymonkey. Yes, I don't use Surveymonkey. I receive lots of Surveymonkey surveys and I do respond occasionally to the surveys if I'm interested. Surveymonkey is free at a low level, but then there's the paid version if you're a big corporate organisation and you're sending out to thousands of people. So I don't use Surveymonkey. With my open questionnaire, one of the things I put is I frame it as well. As a public speaking trainer and coach, I'm always striving to deliver good quality and good value because your clients, my clients, are important. I would really value any comments you can give me. So I would value any comments you could give me to help me improve my service. Simply, what did you like? What did I do well? And people always give me lots of positive feedback. What could I change? What could I do differently? And some people say, look, Peter, it was really good. I don't want to fill this in. But if you want something, because I know you value feedback, you gave me 2 opportunities to speak during the day. I would have loved to speak 3 or 4 times. In a one-day workshop, Peter, I would have loved to take video and then discuss the video. And my response is, yep, that's great feedback. I get that quite often. I do run a two-day boot camp where I've got time to video. One day's really hard to do video and then play it back with a room of 10 people. Okay, thank you for those questions. Brilliant. And keep them coming. Any other comments? Don't wait for this Q&A slide. I'm going to talk about indirect feedback. So this is how you get feedback without directly asking for it. So you haven't taken a video, you haven't got a trusted friend. This is not your coach giving you feedback. And this is something you need to do, and this may be for some of you something else you need to add into your presentation, and a somewhat new concept. Ask your audience as you're presenting. So one of the people I like to follow is Matt Church, and he's a thought leader and a great public speaker, and he talks about tell, show and ask. And every 10 minutes he goes through the process of tell people something, show people something, so audio visual, and then ask them to share with the person next to you, and then share with him. So what you can do is ask the audience. So these are the 4 steps you need to do to reach financial security. Let me show you a couple of case studies. Is that information useful to you? So you will tell them some stuff, Then you'll show, you might demonstrate, you might flip chart, put up a PowerPoint slide. And then you'll ask, okay, is this useful to you? Speak to the person next to you. How would you use this in your next presentation? How can you use this in your workplace? Does this make sense to you, or is this helpful to you? What else do you need to know from me? How can you use this today? And then when the audience gives you feedback, you can now adjust and you can change according to the feedback. So this is getting feedback live, indirectly by the audience telling you, look, I'd like to know a little bit more about this. Now, look, we're already doing this, Peter. What we're really here for is, what can we do to deal with the difficult people in the audience, the hecklers, the complex people, those people that don't want to be here? You know, we already know how to engage those audiences that want to be there, but there's always a percentage of people that don't want to be there. So what you've said so far, we already know this. We want you to go to the next level. Whew, that's good feedback. Now I have to change my content. Yes, I've got to think on the spot, and I've now got to weave in this higher level skill, because that's what the audience wants. That's what the audience wants. Tell them something, show them something, ask them to share with the person next to them. Share in your table if you're working in groups. Can someone from the table report back to me? Is this of any value? Oh, you want to know more about this. Now you have feedback and you're able to change, adjust and do a better job in response to that indirect, dynamic feedback from the audience. Peripheral vision. Did you know that one of the best skills you can do as a public speaker is to learn to juggle? Yep. Jugglers need to look, while looking straight ahead, look at the side and see what the balls are doing, which ball's coming down. You cannot look straight ahead and juggle unless you've got peripheral vision. Start with 3 balls, by the way. Your peripheral vision, and this is getting feedback from the audience once again indirectly. If people are shaking their head from left to right, or conversely nodding their head, you're getting feedback from your audience. They're shaking the head, they don't agree. You now need to soften your stance. You now need to acknowledge that there are other views in the room, other points of view. You may need to say, look, I understand this is a bit contentious at the moment, but just bear with me for a moment. I've got a few more things I want to say, and then I'll check back with you to see if this makes it more reasonable. And then the shaking of the head might move to the nodding of the head. What if people are falling asleep? It's after lunch. Fantastic buffet lunch. Everyone's overeaten. You're the speaker straight after lunch and you notice everyone's nodding off. That's feedback. Use it. Get them to jump up on their feet. Get them to share. Get them to do an exercise. People are losing interest, yawning, looking at their watches. People are putting their hands up for the questions. Are you engaging them? My peripheral vision here, as I'm looking at the screen, is I've got the little dialogue box off to the side waiting for your questions. There you go, guys. 2 indirect ways. Tell them, show them, ask, peripheral vision. Use one of these 6 ways of getting direct feedback. Feedback needs to be actionable. It needs to be specific. Not, that was a great job, that was a terrible job. Specific. Give the people permission to be honest. And get the feedback as soon as practical and act on that feedback. You probably know I've got a few workshops coming up. Karratha, Melbourne, Bunbury. I've just scheduled some workshops in Albany that are on my website but not on this slide. If anyone knows anybody in Albany, please go to my website. If you're interested, you want to know more about the workshops, share them with colleagues and friends. Word of mouth is my main means of generating marketing. The Albany workshops are not on the, are on the website. I've got 2 webinars in October that I've scheduled. I haven't got them on my website yet. They're being uploaded as I speak. So if you're interested in further webinars, then go to the website. Across the top tab, you'll see webinars and you'll see the upcoming webinars. Please send me any emails with further questions after today. The recording will be available in a couple of days' time. Just email me and I can send you the link to the recording. Fairly straightforward, this information. I'm just challenging you to get feedback. Feedback's going to help you grow. Using the Johari window, you're going to unlock some of your potential. Yes, you will get some feedback that you do not like. You will get some feedback that you do not like that is unsolicited and you can ignore. You will get some feedback that you do not like that you may need to take action on. Use a coach, use a mentor, use feedback to make those changes you need. Any further questions as we wrap up the webinar? And I'm probably going to finish a couple of minutes early. Any last questions?